Well, hello. We meet again. I was just sitting back reading a few books, and I got to thinking, what are we all doing this quarantine? First of all, we need some light. That's better. Due to the quarantine, I have decided to give a few book recommendations that might really help you get through this next month or so. And, hey, you might be able to read all of them by the time it's all said and done. But here they are. I'm going to break them down one by one. And let's get to it. Let's get started, shall we? Now, as you can see, I've got a few books. I try to pick out a few of different categories so that would be appealing to a variety of people. Let's start number one. So, primarily, I like nonfiction. I like practical things. I like to learn things. I'm not a huge fiction guy, but I have quite a few of those also. I just like nonfiction. If you like history, especially if you like the Revolutionary War, this is pretty enthralling. So this is by Alexander Rose. It's called Washington Spies. I guess you can see that. Definitely worth your time. This is based off of, I don't know if you guys saw it on AMC when it came out. Actually, you can also watch this and do it in tandem with the book since you don't have anything else to do. But it was called Turn. The series is called Turn. The book's called Washington Spies, but the series was called Turn. And basically, it was like 4 seasons, I think. But the book is about the Revolutionary War and how George Washington had a spy ring. This is a true story. He had a spy ring, and the information that they gathered for him was pivotal to the war effort, and it's just really fascinating. Even if you don't like history, it's pretty interesting, and you'll definitely like the show. But the book is clearly a little more accurate. Hollywood took a little bit of liberty with the historical accuracy of the show, but the book's pretty accurate, I think. It shows letters that the spies sent to Washington and his response to them, and they didn't even uncover a lot of this information until long after the war. So it's really, really interesting. Boom. Next. All right. So you don't think I don't like fiction at all? All right. East of Eden also was a movie. East of Eden, nonfiction book, great book, classic, clearly. Now, I have read Washington Spies, but I have not actually read the book. I have seen the movie, and this was made into a movie in 1950, I want to say 3 or 4, and James Dean starred in it. Really good. That was his first major role. Fun fact, James Dean would come on the set, whether it was this, whether it was Rebel Without a Cause, having to use the bathroom. He would do that on purpose because he thought it added some intensity to his role. He wanted to feel like on edge while he was doing it. Or he wanted to feel like he was going to piss his pants. One of the two. I also like my mafia genre. So anybody that follows mafia anything knows who Sammy the Bull is. He's widely regarded as one of the greatest mafiosos of all time. He was underboss for John Gotti and the Gambino crime family in the 70s and 80s. Anyhow, it's written by Peter Moss. I think this was like 92 or 93 when this was released. But he recently got out of jail. There's a really cool interview with him online. It's the only one recently because he's only done one interview since he got out of jail. But if you Google it or jump on YouTube, you can find it. Fascinating interview. It's like an hour and a half. Again, are you doing anything else? Yeah, check it out. The book, this is one of those books, if you like mafia stuff, you will read this in like 2 nights. It's fascinating. This is really good. I've read a lot of mafia books. This is probably my favorite that I've read. All right, we'll do a little sports now, shall we? Phil Jackson. The reason why this is relevant, as you know, Phil Jackson was a Hall of Fame coach, basketball coach, coached the Chicago Bulls, coached the Lakers, won 11 rings in total. And his first book, he's written several books since this period, but his first book was called Sacred Hoops. And he wrote this, I want to say like 95, 96, something like that. Which I'll even tell you. Stand by. It's called Sacred Hoops while we're talking. 95. There you go. I know my dates. Anyway, really good book. He was into Zen, Buddhist Zen. He's very philosophical. So it's a very philosophical book. It's really just using sports as a metaphor for how he lives life. Really good book. So again, even if you're not a basketball fan, if you're not a sports fan, it doesn't matter. It's really good. Also, it's relevant because they're about to release the documentary about the 1990s Bulls. And it's a 10-part series that they're going to put out. They're going to move it up. They weren't supposed to release it until June. But since this whole thing going on with the quarantine, they figured, hey, let's move it up. There's no sports going on. No one's really doing anything. Why not entertain them? Let's move it up. Plus, everybody's going to watch it, so the ratings are going to go through the roof. This is going to be probably the biggest sports documentary ever because the 1990s Bulls were such a popular team. And, of course, he was the coach. Jordan, Pippen were the players, and Robin. And that's going to be fascinating. But great book. This one, I don't know if you're familiar with Pete Hamill. He also wrote this book. He does these sort of things. He does this series of why somebody or why something matters. This one's called A Drinking Life. This was a national bestseller. But this is the book that we're talking about now. Why Sinatra Matters. And if you don't know why Sinatra matters, then you've been under a rock. Anyway, you probably need to read this book. If you know why Sinatra matters, then you're going to want to read it anyway because it's interesting. Just, again, if you've read any of his stuff, it's in the same sort of vein. Just very interesting. Talks about the history of Sinatra and why he mattered. Cool book, not very long. You could probably read this in a day or two. Cool, highly recommend that. Again, if I'm selecting them, you know this shit's good. Lastly, once again, I'm not a huge fiction guy. This is an exception though. This is one of my favorite fiction books ever. Many of you have already read this, so you know what I'm talking about, because it is a wildly popular book. To start with, The Alchemist. The Alchemist. Great book. It talks about life's journey, you know, taking you places that you should be going, meeting people you're supposed to be meeting, if you have a purpose, if you have a goal, if you have a volition. And anybody that's done any like hardcore traveling with an open mind and spontaneous attitude would tell you that a lot of things in this book, while this might be fiction, happen in reality. It's very interesting. So it's a life book. Anyone who loves philosophy or lifestyle, or this is why I bring it up because it's very La Dolce Vita-esque. This is on the reading list. This is a La Dolce Vita reading list material right here. The Alchemist. Fantastic. You can't go wrong. All right. Hopefully that'll help you spend your time wisely. And until next time.